Alright, I'm going to break this turkey down into a roast, actually 3 roasts. One roast of the breasts and 1 roast for each of the thighs. It's a 22-pound turkey. I've basically defrosted it. I've pulled all the giblets out of the 2 sides and I've untied the legs. You want a really sharp knife. I prefer a boning knife. You should be able to do the entire thing with a boning knife, but I do have my chef knife on the side in case I run into a really heavy joint that I can't handle. It requires a heavier knife. But let's see if the boning knife does it. The thing to do is to find the joint. It's easiest to find it by moving it a little bit. There we go. We're going to take the wings off, but we're going to leave the first biggest bone of the wing. Whoops. Get out of there. On there, because we're going to tie that, we're going to leave that on the breast and we're going to roast it with that on there. Next trick,
big sucker.
Pull this skin off here. And if you were doing a chicken, you could just pull this bone out. This is the wishbone right here. With a turkey, it's harder to get to it, and it's got a tendon up at the top of it that holds it in place. But I do want to loosen it up a little bit for later without shredding the breast, because when it comes time to pull these breasts off, this bone right here, if it's not taken care of, will leave a lot of meat inside of the turkey. Or leave a lot of meat attached to the frame, rather. But unlike a chicken, it's really hard to pull it out, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Now that it's loose. There we go. Now I'm basically just going to cut the turkey in half. I'm going to leave a lot of skin. I'm going to leave all the skin on the thigh, though, because I'm going to roast it with the skin on. Pop the joint. You basically dislocate the hip bone just by pulling back like this. This part right here is called the oyster. It's a lot of extra meat. So left there, right above the bone. Oh, that's one leg. Dislocate the other one. Put the oyster right there as best I can. You don't have to do this, but I've got a pretty small pot, and I'm going to save these bones here to roast them. And they're not going to, this entire backbone here is not going to fit into my pot. So while it's got all this weight on it, I'm just going to break the back. Separate it. And it'll just make it kind of a little bit easier to deal with, plus I can just roast it later. To do this roast the way I want to do it, I want to leave these connected in the middle so I can't cut down, through the main part of the skin. So what I have to do is I have to start on one side and work myself all the way around. So the first thing you do is come in here where you're separating the wishbone before. You're going to find the top of this joint where the wing connects. Where are you? And there he is. And then you just use the tip of the knife to follow the rib cage. I'm just basically working to separate it from the sternum here without cutting through the skin. It's a little tricky. If there's anything tricky to this whole process, this is it. There you go. Now I'm just going to come back down the other side. Now this is the sternum here. Just as before, I'm just going to follow the rib cage with the point of the knife. Get in there. Just separate that wing now. That just went right through the joint there, looking for the natural separation of the wing. There it is. It's not totally denuded. I mean, yeah, there's still some meat on there. I probably could have got a little bit closer to it, but I'm going to roast this and I'm going to use it for stock. It's not a disaster. Have a little extra meat in the stock, add a little flavor. It's not bumming me out too much. I've got a nice looking roast here. Got a piece of string here that I pulled out to 8 feet. I'm going to start by tying the wings together. The wings really facilitate doing this, leaving them on, because it really gives you something to hang on to. If you left this thing as just one piece without the wings on there, you kind of don't really have anything to hold that first knot in place. So all I'm going to do is come up, make a little slip knot. Alright. Pull these guys apart. Just kind of shape it the way I kind of want to see it. And all I'm going to do is come around it. Pull my string through. Pull it tight. Pull it tight. I like to just run it along the bottom too, just to make sure the whole thing stays together. Although, really, it doesn't take a lot to hold these things together. Once the string itself is sort of a guideline. Once you've got a couple of loops around there, it's going to want to stay in one piece. Let's just tie a quick knot. Roast. Okay, that's number one. The next two roasts are going to be the thighs. This is another case where you can try to cut some of the thigh meat off. You can try to cut some of the meat off the leg as well and try to wrap it into your roast. I've done it before. I didn't love the results because you get down here on a turkey and the tendons that hang off the end are like pencils. They're really thick, and you have all this silvering as well. I usually just decide to throw that into the stock, but if you're more cost conscious, you'll probably want to try to bring all of it off. Anyway, this is the way to get just the thigh. You do the same thing as with the bone. You look for the natural with the wing bone. You look for the natural separation between the leg and the thigh. You can find it easily by just working the bone back and forth. Once you see that joint, go right through it. Leg to the side. Pull this thing out of there. You can simply just scrape the bone with the side of the knife and that'll take most of the meat off of it. Once you get a decent purchase on it with your fingers, you can come up underneath it. Try not to take too much of the... Well, it's really important to try not to leave any of the cartilage from the end of that joint in there, because it's just really unpleasant to find it when you're eating it later. So, and here's some of that I'm talking about. This is the cartilage from the little knee joint. So just that out of there, and basically got the leg. Now let's tighten it up a little bit. Roll it with the skin on the outside. Now this one, since you don't have the advantage of the bones on either side, it's a little bit trickier to do, but you do basically the same thing. Gotta pull it tight. Through it. On the end of the guy here, just like before. Bring it around to the other side. Tie it off. And there you go. And you repeat with the other one, and you've got turkey and 2 thigh roasts. Three little roasts ready to be brined.